tell, both from the publicly available documents and then I've confirmed with other reporting, independent reporting, is that the government actually sought to have her be a collaborator. So it wasn't just that this was a 302 that came in. They were interested in pursuing this further and having her be a primary potential witness, who knows, some kind of thing. So again, it speaks to the fact that this was taken seriously. We don't have all the facts, but we know that it was taken seriously and that law enforcement officers to this day believe that this was a credible accusation.
So you say that it was all ready to go last summer. Pam Bondi was the attorney general then. She's the attorney general now. Not to ask, be Captain Obvious, but what happened between last summer when they were ready to pursue this and now,
So it's not that they
or
were,
the release of the files?
so it's, well, they were ready to release the files. They were preparing for the potential to release the files. Um, we actually have no indication whatsoever. And I think this is one of the key points for the audience. We have the Trump Justice Department came in and said this was a campaign promise. Bondi said that she had the client
Ready
list
to go?
desk ready to go. They do these big shows. I have found absolutely zero evidence, any indication that the Justice Department has taken any steps, any material law enforcement steps, even inquiries into the Epstein matter since Trump has come into office and since Bondi has come into office. So there's a real disconnect between the stated interest and any material law enforcement follow up. And that's really critical, especially when you think about how accusations of crimes, specifically crimes that involve children. I have done extensive reporting on the FBI. When there isn't a hint of a crime against a child, they get into action right away. So again, it's just a stunning and really disturbing pattern. And quite frankly, we're dealing with a Justice Department that um, chooses really not to engage or share information. And that has created, I think, so much public mistrust. And it's really unfortunate.
You had talked about these additional files that you know exist from your reporting. Do you have any idea if and when those will be released?
So officially, the Justice Department has said that there are no more files that will be released, that anything that is still remaining is either duplicative, it could be held under some sort of thing. We have lots of reason to believe that that's not true because they have been so either careless or negligent in the along the way of this process. Um, so I don't think there's no indication that they will be released, except for the fact that the public takes this so seriously and that members of Congress take this so seriously. So I think that there is both political and public pressure to have this be done. But as of right now, there's no indication that that's ever going to happen.
Let's talk about some of the other things, Sarah, that have transpired. Richard Kahn, who was Jeffrey Epstein's longtime accountant, testified before the House Oversight Committee for almost 6 hours yesterday. We're going to talk about that in a moment, but tell us about the role Richard has played in this investigation up until this point.
So this is the craziest thing, or one of the many crazy things. He has played zero role in this investigation. Zero. Epstein's accountant, the person responsible for his finances, has never been questioned by law enforcement. He's never been questioned by the FBI. He's never been questioned by local law enforcement. He's never.
Fine.
It I have no explanation for it. I find it so alarming. And what I will tell you is that every single member of law enforcement that I know cannot explain this. It's so it's just there. This is the number one investigative step that you would take. And keep in mind, there were investigations, FBI investigations, SDNY investigations in multiple jurisdictions in recent years for which this would have been material, but never.
So
It's
bizarre.
it's really I wish I had a stronger word than how alarming that is for me as not just as a journalist, but as an American citizen who trusts that the basics of investigations and law enforcement are being followed.
One of the biggest headlines out of this Khan hearing was from PBS's Ali Rogan. She reported that Khan confirmed that the Epstein estate paid a settlement out to the woman who accused both him and Donald Trump of abuse, both Epstein and Donald Trump. He said Khan did not say how much or when the settlement was paid. Um, I don't know if you have any information about that, but it seems pretty significant that the accountant is reporting that a settlement uh, was paid to the woman who made these accusations.
So I have spoken to many, many people that were in that deposition and are familiar with it. There is a key point that this question was answered kind of relatively early in the day, and then there was some follow-up later in the day, which suggests that he may have not understood the context of the question, or he may have, I don't know. There's some differing things. And this is the problem with closed door depositions. We
Right.
hear this information that comes out, but we have no way to put it in context or to know. Um, so I would say we still need to find that out. There are the fact pattern does suggest that that may be accurate. So I think that that's, it was absolutely a worthy question to have been asked. We're going to have to wait to see the transcript to really know for sure.
And Khan continues to maintain that he never saw or knew anything about Epstein's wrongdoings. Democrats are saying Epstein's trafficking operation would not have been possible without Richard Khan. So, does it sound like Khan was conning the committee?
I look, I don't want to speculate, but I can say that my knowledge of this case and my knowledge of other trafficking organizations, the accountant is among the most key people. And I think this is also important. Remember, accountants are licensed. They are licensed. They have responsibilities under the law in order to have their certification. And one of the things that I don't know if it came up in the hearing is the obligation to know your client, to have understandings of why things were being done and where things were going, which is important for a variety of reasons: tax reasons, making sure that you're complying with other financial laws. Epstein had property in multiple countries. That would be very important to have an understanding. It just doesn't pass the smell test. And I think one of the ways that I'm starting to think more recently, as more information has come out about this, is to look at the Epstein operation somewhat similar to a mob operation, in that there are individuals who often play a role in these cases. Like if you've ever seen The Sopranos or The Wire, you have people in this sphere,
Organization.
organization, who play a very specific role, and they deliberately try to not have things in writing, not know things, not ask certain questions. Don't tell me that. I don't want to know it if you have seen any of these shows. So I think that's part of the context here, which is, why didn't he want to know? And why did he feel comfortable uh, continuing to work for this man even after he is arrested, even after he is convicted sex offender? Like, there's there's really no great explanation, except for perhaps he either did not want to know or was not telling the truth under oath. And I think that we'll have to find out.
Let's move on to New Mexico. And I'm sorry I keep blowing my nose, everyone. I've got this worse cold and keeping it classy.
Girl,
I ran out of Kleenex.
girl, I have been sick and my children have been sick, it feels like, for months. So
Okay, good. So you know where I'm coming from. But let's talk about New Mexico because I haven't been paying enough attention to this. On Monday, New Mexico state investigators began searching Epstein's 30,000 square foot mansion, which is called the Zorro Ranch. Uh, I was like, why did he have property in New Mexico?
So he had a lot of property in various places. He also loved this kind of jet set lifestyle of going from one place to another, not being in any one particular place for a time, which in hindsight we can look at as like perhaps a pattern that is of concern and would be of concern to investigators. But he had this large ranch. He liked to entertain there. He would often bring guests there. And it was a site of a lot of alleged abuse, including very violent and absolutely criminal abuse. The reason that this is coming up somewhat now is because the included in the files that have been released, the wide millions of files, are some allegations, unverified, that crimes may have taken place there, including like bodies being buried. We have no, we don't know. This is just something that's in the file. And there's a lot of unverified information in the file.
Right.
But that's what's prompting this right now. Again, this property could have been searched 25 years. Like it doesn't, it's almost comical that this is the first time that law enforcement, and keep in mind, it's not the FBI, it's the state. It's the
And
state.
have they found anything, Sarah, in the search, or do you know
Not,
what the status is of that?
not to my knowledge. I think that they've had some preliminary search and we'll have to wait and see. But the other thing you have to remember is this is a search many years after his death. Many years after,
Has
this
it
is
just been
this
is
is
it
a
just sitting there empty?
I mean, there's been a lot of time. I think what I would tell you is there's been a lot of time for this is not an active crime scene. This is a place that has been changed immensely since uh, Epstein was last there.
We also heard this week that a foreign hacker breached servers connected to the FBI's New York field office and may have accessed files related to Epstein. Honestly, this does sound like some kind of John Le Carre novel or something, doesn't it? But in a statement to the Guardian and Reuters, the FBI described the incident as an isolated cyber event. What have you heard about this?
So there's actually been a couple different cyber events that have come into public knowledge in the last couple of weeks, which is both a reflection of how critical, what a target this is uh, for foreign governments, for state kind of large criminal organizations, and just ordinary hackers. However, we don't know for sure that Epstein files were accessed, or at least I have not independently found that. But this is absolutely something that should be of concern because there is, besides personal information, um, there's just so much that is incredibly sensitive and concerned. And I think, again, it comes down to, is the federal government taking every possible precaution? Cyber intrusions, unfortunately, especially from foreign actors, are incredibly common. But that's why, in part, like the fact that there is information that the public doesn't know, but that other foreign governments might know, is a really important question, and a question that I'm running around Washington constantly asking.
Looking forward, what's next on the agenda, Sarah, for the Oversight Committee? Leon Black was ordered to be deposed in a lawsuit brought by a woman who alleges that Bank of America facilitated and profited from Epstein's sex trafficking enterprise. So what are we looking at in the days and weeks to come?
There's a couple new depositions. There's a couple new things that could be quite interesting and could provide new information. The things that I'm really watching for are two things. One is that Howard Lutnick has agreed to testify before the committee. That I think is incredibly important for a variety of reasons. One, he has this bizarre interview in which he said that he knew that Epstein was a creep and he never vowed to never see him again. And then we find out only after the files are released that he, in fact, was bringing his children to Epstein's island in a foreign country
Right.
years after he is a convicted sex offender and has spent time in prison, which speaks to questions about judgment as well as all sorts of other things. Um, so I think that interview I'm going to be really, really looking carefully on, in part because one of the questions that I've been asking the White House and kind of every agency in town recently is, did people's relationships with Epstein, their financial relationships with Epstein, the fact that this material was in existence, um, did that come up in vetting, presidential transition vetting? Did that come up in FBI background checks, which most officials need to pass? And specifically for the highest level officials, including cabinet secretaries, their security clearances. And why is that important? It's important because a key part of our national security is that we don't want our foreign adversaries to have information that could be embarrassing or problematic because it provides an opportunity for blackmail. I have gotten no good answer about whether or not this did come up or was never addressed. Either way, it's a major problem, and just speaks to all sorts of potential issues.
What about some of the other people we